Where's that?
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You guys, we have been gone for a month.
They're socializing.
That was
It's
so
nice.
sad.
They're excited to be back together. It's very sweet.
Okay,
They're cute.
well, just in case you've forgotten, when we say Shabbat Shalom, you say it back to us. So Shabbat Shalom. Oh, good. Okay. Welcome to Temple Israel, and welcome to everyone watching from home. We're so delighted that you could be here with us this evening in whatever fashion you are here with us. So Rabbi Michael and I have been away for a month, so you'll have to be patient with us if we forget a little bit what we're doing. So if you sing all the notes, then we'll do our best to sing along with you. So we're going to start on page 10 with Yedid Nefesh. This is one of those songs that we like to begin Shabbat with, and when there comes a part in the middle that we just say yai dai 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 dai, and I will remind you of it just in case you forget when it comes. Yedi nefesh av harachman, yedi nefesh av harachman, meshochav decha, eretz onecha, meshochav decha, yadai dai 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 dai, eretz onecha. Beautiful. Some of you remembered. We're going to do that again. Yedi nefesh av harachman, yedi nefesh av harachman, meshochav decha, eretz onecha, meshochav decha, yadai dai 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 dai, eretz onecha. Beautiful. Yarutz avdecha Beautiful. One more time in the beginning. Yedi nefesh av harachman, yedi nefesh av harachman, meshochav decha, eretz onecha, meshochav decha, yadai dai 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 dai, eretz onecha. Beautiful. So we always begin our services with the lighting of the Shabbat candles to be able to sort of bring in that Shabbat spirit. And even though we do have a new lighter, it will still probably mess it up. So Reverend Michael, if you'll do the lighting, I would appreciate it. So our candle blessings can be found on page 2. So we take a moment, we bring in that Shabbat spirit. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, Mitzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. And next we turn to our Kiddush on the following page, and we'll just do the short Kiddush this evening. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei pari hagafen. And I was explaining to someone earlier this evening that we started doing this thing called the pre-oneg a few years ago, which is totally made up. There's no such thing as pre-oneg. Oneg means joy, but the idea is really that we knew that sometimes people get hungry before services. So we like to make sure that we say our motzi just in case you've done some snacking. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. It doesn't count unless you eat a bite. Okay, there you go. So one of the ways that we welcome in Shabbat together can be found on page 20. It's this poem, Lecha Dodi, and the idea of Lecha Dodi is just to recognize that there's something about Shabbat that is so special and so different that it's more than just a time, that it's as if a person is coming into our midst. And so we welcome in the Sabbath bride with the words of Lecha Dodi, honoring this sacred time we share together. Lecha dodi likrat kalai Adonai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabala. Lecha dodi likrat kalai Adonai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabala. Shamor vezachor v'dibor echad. Hishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kalai Adonai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabala. Lecha dodi likrat kalai Adonai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabala. So we'll turn now together and we'll call each other to worship on page 28 with the words of the Barachu, and I invite you to please rise. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Barachu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach, hamevorach le'olam HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. On the bottom of 31, let's read in the English together. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. And we join together in words of Shema on page 34. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. So we have some of our students who are here this evening who have been working on their Ve'ahavta. So I would love to invite those students, you know who you are, to come on up, and if you would help us on page 36. Come on up, guys.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה Asher Anochi Mitzavecha Ayom Alevavecha Veshivtatam Le'anecha V'divartam Bam Veshivtecha Bebetecha Uvlechtecha V'alderech Ushokbecha Uvkamecha Ushartem Le'ot Al Yadecha V'hayu Letatafot Einenecha Utanam Ametuzot Betecha Uvisharecha Lema'an Tizkeru Anasi'et Oko Mitzvotai Keikam Temashim Le'okechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher Hotzetiehem Me'eretz Mitzrayim V'yot Lechem L'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem.
On page 41, sing the song of men and women, join in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. We turn to 46 and we rise and join together in words of tefillah. Adonai sifatai tivtach ufi yagita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei B'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Chozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei hakol atah rav l'ochia, Mechakel chayim b'chesed, Mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'ofech olim, U'matzir asurim, U'mekayem emunato lishenei afar. Mi chamocha ba'al gevurot, u'midol melach, melech memitz u'mechayeh, u'matzmiach Yeshua, ne'eman atah lechayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Please be seated. And we're going to turn now forward to page 60 And we'll join together in a prayer for peace over Israel, over our country, and over all the world. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Ki ata melech hador lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech hador lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובחושך בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim La'olam. At the bottom of 61, it reads, "Don't stop after beating the swords into plowshares. Don't stop. Go on beating and make musical instruments out of them. Whoever wants to make war again will have to turn them into plowshares first." And so we offer one more prayer for peace on 62 with the words of Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimrama uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimrama uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. So tonight we thought we would do something a little bit different. We are going to, I don't know if this counts as starting a new tradition or bringing back an old one, but we recognize that for those of you who have children who are in religious school or who are B'nai Mitzvah age, that you often are here on Saturday mornings and you have the opportunity to hear the Torah read and to have the whole Torah reading experience. But for most everyone else, you don't necessarily get the opportunity to do that. So the early Reform Jews, they decided that because Reform Jews tend to gather on Friday nights instead of Saturday morning, that they would say, well, why can't you occasionally read Torah on a Friday night? So we are going to do that tonight for you, and we hope this will become a new tradition that we're going to try and shoot for on the first Fridays of the month. So to do that, we need to be able to bring the Torah to you, and so what I'd love to do is ask Miss Ella if you would come on up, and if we can ask everyone else to please rise. So first, Ella, you are just going to stand right here. Oh, wait, you've got my microphone. Hold on a second. Perfect. All right, so as Ella is here with us, we are going to turn and we are going to sing Ki Mitzion, which is on page, oh, Ella, I usually ask you what page things are on, but now we're up here. So Ki Mitzion is on page 246. Ki Mitzion tetzeh Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah u'devar Adonai mirushalayim. Flip the page. Baruch shenatan Torah Torah. Baruch shenatan Torah Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. So now Ella is going to do exactly what Moses did on, maybe not exactly what Moses did on Mount Sinai, but similar to what Moses did on Mount Sinai. She is going to bring the Torah to you. So it's your tradition, if you wish, when she walks down the aisle, you are more than welcome to take your Siddur, your prayer book, and reach out, and you can delicately touch our Torah. And I'm going to have you do you think you could do a... Yes. Awesome. Beautiful. And we'll sing a little Romamu while we do that. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishacharu lehar kadsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishacharu lehar kadsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romamu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romamu. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishacharu lahar kadsho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishacharu lahar kadsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romamu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romamu.
Oh. Ella, you're so popular. This is what happens when you give out the Torah. We're switching it up tonight.
I only know like a few chords, so I gotta live it up. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. Shalom, 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 shalom. Eitz chaim chila machazikim b'vatzomchecha ma'ushar. Eitz chaim chila machazikim b'vatzomchecha ma'ushar. Please be seated.
Help me out a little bit.
All right, so as you know, at Temple Israel, we are all about sort of the communal aliyah instead of having individuals do our blessings. So if you would join us in the blessing before the reading of the Torah on page 250. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Ela hadavarim asher diber Moshe el kol Yisrael be'ever hayarden ba'midbar ba'arava mul suf bein paran uvein tofel v'lavan v'chatzerot v'di zahav.
These are the words that Moses addressed to all Israel on the other side of the Jordan, through the wilderness in Arava named Suf, between Param and Tofel, Lavan Chazerot, and Di Zahab.
Eser yom michorev derech har seir ad Kadesh Barnea.
It is 11 days from Horeb to Kadesh Barnea by the Mount Seir route.
Vayhi ba'arba'im shana ba'eshtei asar chodesh be'echad lechodesh diber Moshe el b'nei Yisrael kekol asher tziva Adonai oto alehem.
It was in the 40th year, on the first day of the 11th month, that Moses addressed the Israelites in accordance with the instructions that Adonai had given him for them.
Hakoto et Sichon melech ha'omri asher yoshev ba'cheshbon ve'et Og melech ha'bashan asher yoshev ba'ashtarot ba'idrei.
This was after he had defeated Sichon, king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon, and King Og of Bashan, who dwelt at Ashtaroth and Edrei.
Ba'over ha'yarden be'eretz Moav ho'il Moshe be'er et ha'torah hazot lemor.
On the other side of the Jordan, in the land of Moab, Moses undertook to expound this teaching, and he said,
Adonai Eloheinu diber elenu bechorev lemor rav lechem shevet bahar hazeh.
Our God Adonai spoke to us at Horeb, saying, you have stayed long enough at this mountain. So we'll join in the blessing afterwards. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. So we're going to invite Rabbi Michael to lift it, and you can see this parsha, and you can see it's kind of cool. Where he started is that big break there, because this is the first Torah portion in the book of Deuteronomy. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moses gave to the people and to Moses at the foot of Mount Sinai. It's been a while since I had to do that.
Getting back there.
So some of you may have been a little nervous and wondering, where is the Mishibera? Well, the truth is that Mishibera traditionally is actually done when the Torah is out in our midst. So we, now that we have the Torah in our midst, are going to take that time and we are going to turn to our Mishibera, which is on page 253. And at this time, we take a few moments and we think of the people who are in our community who are in need of healing. So if there's someone that you're thinking of at this time, someone who would appreciate knowing that we were sharing their names here and you'd like to say them, I would invite you to do so at this time. So we're thinking too tonight of Arlene Alper, and we're thinking of Howard, and we are thinking of Roberta watching at home. We're thinking of Lisi Weinstein, and for all of those who we know are hurting, we're sending healing thoughts and prayers their way. So we sing our Mishibera. is in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. So my friends, tonight is a special Shabbat on the Jewish calendar. It is the Shabbat that precedes Tisha B'Av. And Tisha B'Av is known as being really sort of the darkest day of the Jewish year. It's this time that commemorates really sort of a series of terrible things that have happened throughout Jewish history. And it's also called Shabbat Chazon, which means the Shabbat of prophecy, because we read this beautiful prophecy called Isaiah. But I learned something new this week. It has another name in English, and truly, I was kind of counting on Rich. So, all right, so I'm hoping, Zach, you may know the answer to this. We're going to play Name That Tune to see if you can figure out what this Shabbat is called. Are you ready? I should have actually asked you to play this, but I'm just going to do it instead. Da-na, da-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. What is, not the name of the song, though that's awesome too, but who played that song? Black Sabbath, yes, you got it. Nice, thank you, Amy. Oh, I was a little concerned we don't have enough hard rock fans. All right, so this Shabbat is actually called Black Sabbath, which I think is so awesome, and I think Ozzy Osbourne is Jewish, right? I don't know. We don't have to talk about that, but this is actually called Black Sabbath, because it is supposed to be the darkest day of the whole year. But my guess is that there's a lot of you who may not only have never heard of Black Sabbath, except for Ozzy, but you may not know a lot about Tisha B'Av. Because the truth is, unless you grew up in a more observant Jewish community, this is not really a holiday that we talk about very much. The first of sort of the series of bad things that Tisha B'Av commemorates is the destruction of the ancient temple all the way back in 586 BCE. And because Reform Jews don't necessarily look at that as being the worst thing to ever happen to the Jewish people, it's just not one that we talk a lot about in religious school or at temple. The one place, though, where you may have actually heard it is if you went to a Jewish summer camp. Because since this tends to be the only Jewish holiday in the summer, a lot of Jewish summer camps, they tend to make sort of a big deal about Tisha B'Av, and that's really where I first learned about Tisha B'Av. And I learned it not when I was a camper, but when I was a counselor, when I was in my 20s. And I was working at this Jewish summer camp in Michigan, and this was a camp. Do I have any Sabra kids here? Who went to Sabra? Anyone? Sabra, okay, excellent. All right, so it's sort of like Sabra, even if you don't know it, you probably know about it, that it was the kind of Jewish summer camp that was sort of like nominally Jewish, but still a little bit Jewish, and also one of those camps that sort of once you go there forever. And that was true of pretty much everyone on the staff, except for me. The reason that I got my job is that the person who had been the music supervisor for the camp, he had gone off to France to find himself, and then the camp couldn't find him. So they were very desperate at the very end, and they needed someone, and so they hired me. And there were 3 parts to my job. The first was that I was teaching guitar, and I knew the same 4 chords then that I know now, but that was totally enough to be able to teach these campers. I was also in charge of sort of any Jewish programming, which for the most part was Shabbat. And this has nothing to do with the sermon, but I also had this job that I was supposed to be in charge of anything that was had to do with like speakers or electronics. And so I could drive this red pickup truck throughout the camp, and I was in charge of plugging things in, which, if you know anything about me, Carla probably does, is that I'm a terrible driver and I'm very bad at anything electronic. So this was a terrible idea, but the most important part of my job was the Judaics. And so every Friday night, I was in charge of doing some sort of Shabbat song session. And then when it came for Tisha B'Av, they asked me if I would create some sort of ceremony or something for the campers. So I did. I created something really lovely for them. And then at the staff meeting that we had a couple weeks before before Tisha B'Av was going to happen, the director of the camp, he gets all of the unit heads, all of us together, and he says, Amy is going to take over. She's going to do the programming for Tisha B'Av, but he reminded everyone that there was also this tradition at this camp that sometime towards the end of the summer, all the counselors would get together and they would have one night and they would put on a talent show just for each other. And it was a very inappropriate talent show. So it was like the counselors in training would stay with the kids, and so everyone knew about it, but it was this tradition they would do. So the director says, Amy is going to plan this beautiful Tisha B'Av programming for the day, and then that night we're going to have our staff talent show. And so I raised my hand and I was like, maybe there's another night that you could do the inappropriate staff talent show, not on the saddest day in all of Jewish history that we're supposed to be teaching these children about. And we sort of went back and forth about this. And like I said, I was new there. I was a little bit nervous about speaking up, but I felt that this was something really important that we had to show the children that Tisha B'Av in Jewish history matters and it isn't something to just blow off. So at the end of the meeting, the director says, well, let's put it to a vote. Everyone who wants to have an amazing time and do what we've always done and have so much fun, you all stand over here with me. And everyone who wants to do what the rabbi does, you stand over there with her. Now, I was not a rabbi, by the way. I was only 20 or 21 or so. But as you can imagine, everyone went to the other side. But for the first time, even though I knew he was mocking me by calling me a rabbi, I thought, that doesn't sound half bad. And a few weeks after camp ended, I decided that I would apply to rabbinical school. But I thought about that moment a lot over the years. I thought about not only just how offended I was by the idea of it, but I tried to think, how could he have done such a thing? How could he have possibly thought that it would be appropriate to have this saddest of times followed by something that was so, raucous and joyous? And as the years have gone on, I've realized that maybe he was right, even though he wasn't very nice about it. Because the thing about Tisha B'Av is that it commemorates all of these terrible things that have happened throughout Jewish history, all of which were supposed to have started on the same day. Whether that's true or not, what we're supposed to do is spend this whole day crying our eyes out. If you're in Israel, people go to the Western Wall, and the crying and the wailing is so loud you can hear it from all over Jerusalem. It is a day when you are supposed to think about all of the terrible, awful things in the world and have all of the feels and just cry and wail all day long. And then the day ends and you move on. And it's this really amazing teaching if you think about it, about Jewish tradition. The Jewish tradition doesn't say, well, ignore the bad times. Jewish tradition doesn't say that you should just forget about those difficult moments. No, you should remember them, and you should mourn them, and you should wail, and you should scream, and you should gnash your teeth, and you should read meaningful poetry, and you should sing sad songs. But when the day ends, you should move on and do something joyous. And I have to tell you that these past weeks and months, and it feels like years now, when there have been so many times where we come to this space and think about all the things that are going wrong. It's maybe a really important teaching for us to say we can be aware of the wrongness and the hurt and the suffering in the world, and we should be able to wail and we should be able to moan, but then there has to come a day where we say, even if we're still sad, we're going to find a way to feel some joy. And so my hope is that as we go into this weekend of Tisha B'Av, that if you want to have that time where you are feeling mournful and afraid and lonely and all of those heartbreaking feelings, that you give yourself that space, but then you find a way to move on. And maybe you can even do it by listening to a little Black Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom. So I'll ask you now, if you will, to please rise, and we are going to return our Torah to the Ark and then turn to the words of the Aleinu. So Aleinu can be found on the bottom of page 282. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gidula liyotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoyei ha'artzot, velo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo samchakenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umudim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh Barachu. On page 287.
May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. And so at this time, we take a few moments and we recall with love the names of those who were taken from us in recent days. And our hearts go out to their families in sympathy as we recall their names: Eugene Krause, Richard Rice, Kenny Steinbach, and Sid Wolf. We now recall the names of those, the anniversary of whose death occurs on this Shabbat, and whose names have been inscribed in the archives of our congregation or on the Wall of Honor for perpetual memorial. Eileen Aronson, Ann Zabrak Bender, Mamie Benson, Ruthie Saxberger, Horatio Jackson Bernard, Harold Brown, Frank Elkins, Leona Elkins, Jacob Finn, Bessie Finkelstein, Ira Robert Fishbein, Helen Rose Freed, Sidney Fuchs, Alan L. Garber, Marcus Goldman, Bessie Miller Jacobs, Ray Kaufman, Emily Evans Klein, Hilda Kraus, Henry Landauer, Matilda Levy, Henry Liebrock, Max Littman, Ruth Marglis, Sarah Michelson, Mildred Perlutsky Penner, Dr. Irving B. Perlstein, Hilda G. Reichman, Ray Rubenstein, Edith Crockett Rubin, Lillian Sarner, Robert Sachs, Edwin Sheely, Helene Schukat, Lillian Spetner, Grace Levin Tryman, Lorraine Holtzman Tucker, Louis Washauer, Marion Weil, Charles Weiss, David Harvey Weiss, Moses Wolfheim, Jesse Wolfert, Stanley Yowitz, Joseph J. Yowitz Sr. So with those names and the names we keep in our hearts, we turn to the words of the Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Yitzgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ba'alma divrach hiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayachon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran ba'alma v'emru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'emru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'emru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and bring comfort to all who are bereaved. And we say, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. So there is a traditional song that we are supposed to sing on the Shabbat or around Tisha B'Av. You can find it on page 370. This tune, I did not realize this until today, who the tune was written by.
Yes.
Don McLean of American Pie fame, who was not Jewish. Someone asked me that when
Also
we
wrote
sang
a song
American
about
Pie.
a dreidel.
I know, it's a little
Very
weird.
confusing.
He's very into the Jews, but he's not Jewish, but he's the one who wrote this tune. So it's on 370. We'll maybe do it once in English and then turn to the Hebrew, which is up there transliterated. By the waters of Babylon, we lay down and wept for thee, Zion. We remember thee, remember thee, remember thee, Zion. Al Naharot, al Naharot, al Naharot Bavel. Sham yashavnu, yashavnu, gam bechinu, bezochreinu, bezochreinu, bezochreinu et Sion. Shabbat shalom, everyone. It's weird, the dumb. It doesn't feel like.
And the dreidel song.
No, but this is like it.
No, that's why we've had the argument that he's Jewish.
So you know what?
I think he's secretly Jewish.
No, you know what? Ed Goldberg sent me this article about him that said that actually Don McLean's, like, multiple of his ex-wives were Jewish. I think that's what the article said. I remember it from when we first did it. So. Okay, good
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbos.
Shabbat shalom.
Yes.